Eve is more of a kind of a model, isn't she? She can do those drop kicks, but she always showcases that move. At least she has that ability, and perhaps she just needs more of those moves in her repertoire to become more over, at least as a worker, and perhaps to get better as she goes along. I know she's done quite a bit of training, and I'm sure they're always in constant training. I know Fit Finlay works with those divas a lot, and certainly the right man in Finlay to get those girls working right.
Yeah, no better man than Finlay. He'll show them the ropes.
Now, David Otunga, I think, will catch a whole new audience of girls. He's going to pull in a new generation, and I believe these are the generation that are going to be watching the product. Because at this point, I certainly can't see myself watching it for the next 10 years, maybe the next 5 years, but it's coming to the point now where a lot of the storylines are just completely out of the demographic that was once watching the show, and indeed Hornswoggle. What more do I need to say?
Yeah, it's tough going. I mean, I think pretty much all the products are pretty stale. Raw's good-ish. SmackDown is dreadful. NXT has gotten worse. TNA will say nothing about the one from Monday night. Ring of Honor is still delivering. FCW is entertaining. But the future is bleak, my friends.
The future is bleak. Let's hope they can impress us. It will take quite a bit, as we've had many decades of quality WWE television in those 80s days and the 90s, right up until about 2001-2. And at that point, we had Leviathan coming on the scene. And at that point, it all just got really boring to me. But then I do try and find the positives. I watch it every week, and obviously I like it. So it's not something that I'm, being negative about on purpose. I'm just reacting exactly how I might see it. Cena and Batista were taking on Show Miz. Of course, Show Miz now being referred to once again as singles competitors, as The Miz and Big Show respectively, not really pushing that Show Miz name. Perhaps an indication that they don't have that long to run. This match full of comic book characters. Really, it looked on the screen like a classic match from way back. I'm not saying the work was brilliant, but certainly it looked like an old school WWF big monster match.
Yeah, because you got all those kind of gimmicks that worked pretty well, I think. Cena's still got his thing. Batista, heel Batista. Was it Cena, Batista
versus Show Miz?
Show Miz, yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Yeah, they got to split Show Miz up and sort out this title situation. Still, they have to do it. So I'm curious to see who's going to take the belts. Could be the Hart Dynasty, maybe.
The Hart Dynasty being jockeyed into that position. They had that build with Bret Hart. And let's see what happens with them in the future. I got to think that they are hoping that the other Hart guy who has not made it into WWE yet, I think his name is TJ. There is another guy out there who was meant to be part of this Hart Dynasty, and he was with the company, but then released, not sure exactly why. But there is more to come on that angle, I hope, and it would be great as a stable of maybe 4 guys or more. Certainly I do like when a stable is more than just 3 people.
Yeah, I think it needs to be. And I have to say this. The Hart Dynasty entrance, it just bugs me with what they do when they come in and they just stand and look at the camera with those smiles, especially Natalia. Yeah, it just bugs me. What if you really watch that entrance and the whole thing right up until the bell rings, the new bell? It's odd. It's an odd entrance. I don't really know what the hell is going on with those guys. But yeah, Teddy Hart, I think, was the guy he was a bit of a problem child from Word on the Street, and he's been in and out of developmental for a while. But yeah, you're not going to do it with 2 guys and Natalia, especially not those 2. Maybe get Brett involved, maybe bring this Teddy chap up and see how it goes. Yeah, they really pushed the father-son gimmick with the whole Bulldog thing and him at the start. And even at a few TV tapings where they were still putting that stuff on him, and kind of worked, but it was kind of, I suppose, it was being done, and I think Richie Steamboat's going down the same street with that stuff, and yeah, they just need to make them new and fresh. I mean, Randy Orton's a typical example of going completely opposite from his old man's gimmick, and look how well that turned out. So there's potential for these guys not to be bracketed into, all this stuff like Joe Hennig and Ted DiBiase, and I know they're kind of slightly going their own way, but at the start it's always, maybe it's an introduction, but I think you're burying some of those guys from the start doing that kind of stuff.
It seems to be a bit overused now. But speaking of second and third generation wrestlers, you got that fortunate son angle tipped in the dirt sheets this week. We had shades of it last week, and indeed this week, Ted DiBiase seemingly continuing this proposed angle, which could or may even not happen. But lots of talk of an angle with Ted DiBiase Sr., the $1 Million Man, getting involved in the story, perhaps with Ted DiBiase having his own heel stable, comprising of his brother Brett DiBiase and Joe Hennig, Mr. Perfect's son, both guys in FCW right now as a tag team, and it would be probably the only way they can get Brett up there. I mean, he looks, as we've said before, a lot like Ted DiBiase Jr., and gimmick-wise, they'd either have to turn him into something like Goldust or put him in this Fortunate Son angle. I mean, what else can they do?
I think they should do a kind of Spirit Squad meets Fortunate Sons angle and get them all in. And he's got the $1 Million belt out of the briefcase and out of retirement and back in the limelight, which is kind of cool to see, I have to say. I mean, if it's going to be acknowledged or how it's going to be treated is another story, but having all those and bringing back the old school DiBiase $1 Million Man gimmick into a kind of a Fortunate Sons scenario with all four, I think that would be really cool, and let them do that crazy stuff that DiBiase did. Insane, I know we're saying we shouldn't rehash those old gimmicks, but that's one that really worked. I mean, it really worked so well for Ted Sr., so. And if you have a stable, I think it's going to be a lot more fun than just Ted DiBiase on his own. And I'm sure Brett DiBiase will bring a lot to the mix as well. Although they do look very similar, I have to say. Very similar.
They look incredibly similar. And it's just probably a huge dilemma for the office right now. What are they going to do? And I think this angle is just the best idea. If it can get $1 Million Man back on the screen, of course, he was a really over guest host last year. And if he could indeed be part of the programming again, this would be a fantastic way to do it. Now, Christian took on Ted DiBiase once again, a rematch from last week. Now, Christian triumphed the week before, Ted DiBiase getting the win this time. And, well, Ted at least coming out on top. It's certainly what I'd like to see, more of Ted DiBiase going over. He certainly deserves it at this point. I think he's a good worker, and he has had a great run with Legacy, but now just time to do a little something with him on his own.
Yeah, I think so. Poor Christian's getting buried, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, the future for Christian, God knows. I think it's going to take a while even to get any kind of strap on him. And if anything, I'm sure it'll be probably a US title. Which is quite sad. Maybe he's still being punished for his TNA buzz, but yeah, he's kind of, I suppose the ECW championship tied him over a little bit, but I mean, again, Ezekiel Jackson was ECW champion, so that doesn't say much. But yeah, I feel sorry for Christian. He's getting buried a little too much for my liking.
It's a shame because he's falling into that Matt Hardy bracket now. Those people that really deserve more, they are being pigeonholed and held back